A special thank you to Student Baller for sponsoring this episode. They're doing amazing work helping athletes not only with NIL opportunities, but also with the community and resources to succeed. From expert advice to access to top-tier partnerships, Student Baller is your go-to source for all things NIL. Visit studentballer.com to learn more. Now, let's get into the show.
All right, so we are back and ready to kick off another deep dive, you guys. And this time we are talking about Travis Hunter and his Adidas deal. It's been making headlines, but we're going to get into why this is so much more than just your average athlete endorsement. We're talking family ties, savvy business moves, and just a whole lot of buzz surrounding this whole thing.
Yeah, and what's really interesting to me is, how this could be a game changer, not just for Travis Hunter himself, but for the whole landscape of endorsements in college sports,
Right, and to really kind of get into why it's such a big deal, let's start with some context. For those maybe not super up on their college football, who is Travis Hunter?
Well, he is the Colorado cornerback, top NFL draft prospect. Yeah. But the thing that really makes him stand out is that he is excelling on offense, defense. Mm-hmm. And, that is so rare, especially at this level of the game.
Yeah, he's that good, huh?
Absolutely. And, he led Colorado to a 9-3 season in 2024. So you've got this incredibly talented athlete with a really bright future, and then, boom, he signs with Adidas in December of 2024.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's not just any deal. He's joining their next-gen roster, which is a pretty big statement from Adidas.
And they timed it perfectly, too, right? It was just days before the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Talk about adding to the hype.
Super strategic.
Great.
Right. And Adidas launched a limited edition apparel line to celebrate this and really went all out on social media. Remember that photo shoot with Travis against that bright yellow background and the Adidas chain?
Yeah.
I mean, that image was everywhere.
Oh, yeah, it was everywhere. But what really sets this apart from so many other deals is this whole family element to it. Travis insisted on including his younger brother, Travis, in the Adidas deal.
And that, to me, is really what makes this so compelling. Travis is a high school sophomore. He's a wide receiver with a lot of potential. But to think that, Travis would use his leverage to bring his brother into a deal like this at such a young age, it says a lot about his character.
Absolutely. And I mean, the way he surprised Travis with the news was just priceless. It's all on his YouTube channel. You can see the pure joy on Travis's face. And then Travis says, I ain't signing nothing that ain't got no family involved. He goes on to say, it's got to be right if Travis is in it. I mean, come on. How can you not love that?
It's a great move for both Travis and Adidas, honestly. Yeah. Because, just taps into that wider audience who, they appreciate these family values. And it positions Travis as this role model, which even further boosts his brand appeal. So it's a win-win for both.
For sure. But, it makes you wonder, does this kind of set a precedent for future NIL deals? I mean, will we see more young athletes using their leverage to, create opportunities for their families?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's one that I think we'll be exploring as we go deeper into the story.
Okay, so we've got this family-first approach, but let's not forget Travis is already kind of a leader in the NIL space, right?
Oh, absolutely. Now, for those not familiar with NIL, it stands for name, image, and likeness. And it's been this huge change in college sports that allows athletes to profit from their personal brand. And Travis is already maximizing this. He's got deals with companies like NerdWallet, United Airlines, JLab, Celsius. He's even got a podcast with Overtime. He was also on the cover of EA Sports College Football 25. So this Adidas deal is just another strategic move in his already impressive brand-building journey.
And it's paying off big time. His On3 NIL valuation is $5.2 million. Which puts him at number 2 in the On3 NIL 100 rankings. That's a lot of influence for a college athlete.
On3 is this organization that tracks and analyzes the NIL market. So that ranking really gives you a sense of just how valuable Travis is in this NIL space.
Wow, that's impressive. It's clear he's not just accepting any deal that comes his way. He's very carefully building a portfolio that aligns with his values and, amplifies his reach. But what I'm really interested in is, what does this deal tell us about Travis Hunter, the person, not just the athlete?
Well, I think this move really demonstrates a commitment to family, loyalty, and a desire to use his success to kind of elevate those closest to him. I think it really humanizes him and makes him even more relatable to fans.
Yeah, I see that. So it's more than just a business deal. It's a statement about who he is and what he prioritizes. But what about Adidas? I mean, what's in it for them?
Well, they've aligned themselves with a rising star who's not only exceptionally talented, but also embodies values that I think resonate with a much wider audience.
Yeah.
And this partnership could potentially attract, a whole new generation of consumers who admire his authenticity and his commitment to family.
Right, so it's a smart move on both sides.
Yeah.
But could there be any downsides for Adidas? I mean, aligning with a young athlete always comes with some level of risk, right?
There's always a risk in any business venture, of course.
Hmm.
But in this case, it seems like Adidas has really done their due diligence. And, they've partnered with an athlete who has a very strong track record of success both on and off the field.
That makes sense. But what if this backfires?
Well, it's possible. Unforeseen circumstances could arise like with any partnership. But based on what we've seen so far, Travis seems to be a very thoughtful and responsible individual. Of course, there's always a chance, his performance could decline or he could be involved in some sort of scandal. But those are kind of risks inherent in any athlete endorsement.
Okay, good point. So Adidas is taking a calculated risk that they're betting on Travis's character and potential. And so far, it seems like a pretty safe bet. But beyond just the business side of things, what does this deal really say about the changing landscape of college sports?
I think it's a sign of how much power athletes are gaining in this new NIL era. They're not just players anymore. They're brands, they're influencers, and they're really shaping the future of college athletics in ways that I think we're only beginning to understand.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, that's a question that's generating a lot of debate. There are certainly some valid concerns, about potential exploitation, the pressures placed on these young athletes.
Yeah.
But there's also these incredible opportunities, for these athletes to gain financial security, build their brand, and use their platform for good.
Yeah, I see both sides of that. But in Travis Hunter's case, he seems to be navigating this new landscape really well. He's making strategic decisions, he's prioritizing his family, and he's using his platform to inspire others. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out for him in the long run.
Absolutely. And as we continue this deep dive, we'll be exploring those very questions.
Sounds good. Now, before we move on, I want to loop you in on a few more details about this deal that really caught our attention.
One of the things that really stood out to me about this whole deal was how Adidas, went beyond just the typical athlete endorsement. They didn't just slap a logo on a jersey and call it a day, They really tapped into the power of his story and his values and his commitment to family.
Yeah, it seems like they really saw that his appeal went beyond just, athletic prowess. They were marketing him as a role model, someone who embodies these strong family values. Do you think that's a trend that we'll see more of in the future? Brands focusing more on an athlete's character and values in addition to just their achievements on the field or the court?
It's definitely possible. I mean, consumers especially, I think younger generations are becoming way more discerning. They're looking for brands and individuals that align with their own values. So, it makes sense that these companies would start highlighting these aspects of an athlete's persona.
And I mean, let's be real, that photo shoot they did with Travis, the one with the Adidas chain against that vibrant yellow backdrop,
Yeah.
that was marketing gold. It really perfectly captured his style and his personality, and it just got people talking.
Oh, absolutely. It was edgy, it was memorable, and, it generated a ton of buzz on social media. It's a great example of how a brand can kind of creatively leverage an athlete's image and connect with a whole wider audience.
Okay, so we've talked about, the positives for both Travis and for Adidas, but what about some of the potential downsides? Are there any risks involved for either side?
Well, for Travis, there's always that risk of, overexposure or becoming too commercialized.
Yeah.
It's super important for him to maintain that balance, between his athletic career, his personal brand, and just his authenticity. If he kind of spreads himself too thin or starts endorsing products that don't really align with his values, it could definitely damage his reputation.
That's a good point. It's a delicate balance for sure. What about Adidas? Any downsides for them?
Well, for Adidas, there's always the risk that, Travis's performance could decline or that, he could be involved in some sort of controversy that reflects negatively on their brand. It's a calculated risk they're taking, but it's one that they've likely assessed pretty carefully.
It makes you wonder about the pressure on these young athletes these days, especially with the NIL landscape changing so rapidly. They're not just athletes anymore. They're brand ambassadors, business people, role models. Is it too much too soon for some of these kids?
It's a valid concern. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with these opportunities. It's crucial that, universities and athletic departments provide these athletes with the guidance and support they need to navigate this new world. They need to understand the complexities of contracts, financial management, brand building, all of that.
And they need to be prepared for the potential pitfalls too, right? Not every endorsement deal is going to be a slam dunk. There's always a chance of failure, and they need to be able to handle that, both emotionally and financially.
Exactly. It's important to remember that, these are still young people who are developing and maturing. And we need to, protect them from exploitation and just make sure they're making informed decisions that are in their best interest, both short-term and long-term.
Yeah, that's a lot to think about. And it's not just the athletes that need this guidance. Brands, they need to be responsible in their approach to these partnerships as well.
Absolutely. Brands have a responsibility to make sure, they're not exploiting these young athletes.
Yeah.
That they're offering fair compensation and that they're promoting responsible marketing practices.
I agree. It's a shared responsibility for sure. We all have a role to play in making sure that, this new era of college athletics really benefits everyone involved, especially the athletes themselves.
Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what this deal might mean for the future of NIL in college sports. Does this signal a shift towards more family-inclusive deals? Is this something that other athletes are going to try to replicate?
It's definitely a possibility. We might see more and more athletes, using their leverage to try and create opportunities for, their siblings or other family members. It'll be really interesting to see how this trend develops.
Yeah, and it could also lead to a shift in how brands approach NIL deals in general. We might see more emphasis on family values and community involvement as brands kind of try to, connect with a wider audience.
It's a story worth watching for sure. It'll be fascinating to see how this all plays out for both Travis and for Adidas, and what kind of impact it has on the broader NIL landscape as a whole.
And we can't forget about Travis. It will be exciting to kind of watch his journey unfold as well.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that this whole story isn't just about a business deal. It's about family ambition and the power of using your platform to uplift the people around you. Now, before we move on to our final thoughts, let's take a moment to explore some of the wider implications of this deal for the college sports landscape as a whole. We've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
The deal, the marketing genius behind it, the potential risks and rewards for Travis and Adidas, the implications for the future of NIL.
It really has been quite the journey.
It has.
And I think what's so fascinating about this is that it really does kind of get to the heart of what's happening in college sports right now. It's like a little microcosm of this new era where these athletes are gaining so much more power and influence than ever before.
Yeah, it almost feels like we're at a turning point, We're really witnessing this fundamental shift in the dynamics of college athletics, and Travis Hunter is right at the forefront of it all. But where do we go from here? What are the long-term implications of this shift?
That is the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
On the one hand, you have all this potential for, greater economic opportunities for athletes.
Yeah.
More diverse representation, maybe more equitable system overall.
But on the other hand, there are those concerns about, maintaining that academic integrity and making sure the competition is still fair and preventing exploitation of these young athletes. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Exactly. And it's really going to require careful consideration and collaboration from everyone involved. The universities, the athletic departments, the brands, the athletes, even the fans. We all have to work together to navigate this new landscape effectively.
Absolutely. So what can we learn from Travis Hunter's story?
Well, I think his story really kind of highlights the importance of, aligning your brand with your values. He's made it very clear that family is a top priority for him. And he's used this platform to create some incredible opportunities for his loved ones. And that kind of authenticity, that really resonates with people.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that success isn't always about the money or the fame. It's about using your influence to really make a positive impact,
Yeah.
on the world and the people around you.
And staying true to yourself.
Yeah.
Travis could have easily signed, any number of endorsement deals, but he chose to partner with a brand that embraced his values and supported his vision. I think that sends a really powerful message.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. What other examples have you seen of athletes using their platform to really make a difference? What stories inspire you?
Yeah. That's a great question for everyone to think about. It's been great exploring this topic with you. I think it's clear that we're really just at the beginning of this new era in college sports. And it's going to be so fascinating to see how it all unfolds.
It really is. All right, everyone, thanks for tuning in to another deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in as we break down the game, the deals, and all things name, image, likeness. Don't forget, this podcast is brought to you by Student Baller, your go-to resource for boosting your NIL game. Make sure to check out their exclusive NIL launch kit and brand kit and join the Student Baller family to unlock opportunities that could change your life. And hey, if you found value in today's episode, show us some love. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and share this podcast with your squad. Let's build this NIL community together. Powered by StudentBaller.com. One call, Student Ball.